Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to this gathering where we've come to honor and celebrate the life of Mieke Wharton. Welcome you to this community where we're all welcome and in which we show respect and gratitude that we gather here this afternoon on Treaty 6 territory, and a place where we welcome all. This afternoon, we welcome Mieke's family, Malcolm, her husband, and Anne, who because of illness this week with some infection and a bout of asthma has had to join us from home today. And so we welcome her and all those who gather with us online. And we know that, Malcolm, you're supported here today with Anne's longtime friend, Katrina. And of course, the embrace and support of the SSUC community and all the friends that are here today for you. We join here to celebrate the gift of Mieke's life. We're taking time today to honor the values that make life worth living and that Mieke celebrated in the living of her life. We'll find comfort in the memories we share with each other, and we'll take time to express and share our gratitude, to learn the legacy of her life and to lean into the strength of who we are together as supportive and loving community amidst our grief and our gratitude. As we come to hear memories of Mieke this afternoon, born in the Netherlands, growing up during the war in Amsterdam, making a life in Canada as a young woman, newly married, coming to this country, making a life with Malcolm, and eventually with her 2 children. We honor this woman that was a talented student always, a student of life, a student of the classics, a student and lover of the arts. And we'll share in her love of music, her zest for fun, and her commitment to friendship. So although we're here to grieve our loss and to share our sadness, we're also here to create a community with each other, which, if Mieke had her say, would include at least a few laughs and silly moments. As we gather today, we're saddened by her death, and even as we learn her legacy and receive the light that she leaves us, we know that although death is the occasion that we gather, we know that life is the real reason that we're here, to honor it, to celebrate it, and most importantly, to keep living it with newfound wisdom and the light of legacy. And so it's in this spirit that we light the candle among us today. We light this candle knowing that although death has come, the light of Mieke's spirit has not been extinguished. It still ignites in us and warms us. It still lives on in and among us and in the continued turning of the cosmos. This is the light of spirit that dwells in us and around us and among us all. And so we gather today knowing that this light focuses us and centers us and goes with us and helps us remember. As we join our presence and our spirits here with each other as community, I'll invite us to gather with some intentions that will focus us and place us here with each other and for each other. We'll speak these words together that you find before you. In the ever-creating love and energy in which we live and die, we celebrate the gift of life and honor the mystery of death. We come with hearts broken open by love and loss into this community of grief and gratitude. As we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, may we move through sorrow towards celebration. Together may we find the courage to mourn and to celebrate, to laugh and to cry, to be alone with our thoughts and lean into the community of care we create with each other. May we trust the circle of life as we are held in the truth that death does not have the last word, because love is what lasts forever. The wonderful thing about Mieke being part of a community like this for so many years is that she gathered, accumulated, collected not only many friends, but many friends with many memories. And we are fortunate today to have a number of those friends and companions along Miike's journey here in this community to share some of those memories and stories with us this morning. So there's gonna be a little parade up here of some folks with some lovely memories to share of Mieke, and then one video memory to share at the end of that. So we are grateful for each and every person that will speak today, and know that although this vase of tulips that speaks loudly of Miike's past, of Miike's spirit, as each speaker speaks, will add to that beauty. And this vase of tulips will become even fuller, as will our hearts.
Okay, good. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Simone Demers. I think I'm going to have to put my glasses on to see the text here today. Mieke was one of the first persons to welcome Sylvia and me when we first attended Southminster Steinhauer activities in the early 2000s. At the book club, I noticed Miike's great love of books and appreciated the discussions that arose from literary themes. Mieke and I continued sharing after the encounters. We always spoke to each other after every worship service also. Mieke was surprised that we followed Dutch traditions on St. Nicholas Day, such as giving chocolate letters to children, to grandchildren, and the good traditional foods. So it is not surprising that I asked her what prompted her to adopt Canada as her home. It's love that drew Mieke to our country. When as an exchange student, she was assigned to stay at Malcolm's family farm. After a whirlwind courtship, they were soon married in the Netherlands and shared a long relationship with family and friends, especially in this community. I appreciated Miike's musical talents as an accompanist to the Silvertone Choir. From time to time, Mieke played the piano at the worship services that I led at St. Joseph's Hospital. Her assistance was greatly valued and gave me the support I needed. Miike's sense of humor and lively inquisitiveness were often at play in our exchanges. Also, a deep sense of compassion defined her support for justice issues and for LGBTQ2 persons. She shared with us the challenges facing her son as a gay teacher in a small Alberta town. There was great sadness in the family when Paul passed away. Sylvia and I will miss Mieke. Thank you for her life that we shared with her.
Hello, I'm Margaret Hetherington. I'm reading these words, first of all, on behalf of Joan Pillow. Mieke, always so friendly and welcoming to everyone. Genuinely wanted to get to know you. One of the many who welcomed and always spoke to me when I first joined. And of course, that continued at church and in Tuesday Connection. Special memories of Mieke at Great Escape weekends, as she so enjoyed getting involved in all the activities and the fun skits especially. Mieke delighted in wearing the different costumes. The more outrageous, the better, and really giggled. Not just laughed, but giggled and laughed at all the other skits. Mieke relished all the meals and times together, always had questions or something to add to the conversations. She could be serious, but her infectious smile shone through so often. Joan has added some photos to the PowerPoint today from 2 of the later weekends at St. Albert. And now from myself. I always loved sitting close by Mieke on a Sunday morning. She had an immediate reaction to what was being said. It came out as a little gasp, a sound of disbelief or frustration that the world was so slow to treat others with respect and justice. Or sometimes it was her version of, yes, we're starting to find our way. Now, these weren't loud responses, almost an under-the-breath involuntary reaction. I don't think she could help it. Instantaneous rejections of old ways of thinking and solid affirmations of better ways to understand life. You knew where Mieke stood, how impatient she was with hatred and hierarchy, and how committed she was to compassion and justice-making. As we all know, Mieke had a love for learning, for sharing her perspectives, for thinking outside of the box, long before a lot of us. Back in the spring of 2005, our Tuesday Connections Women's Group responded to the invitation of the United Church of Canada to create a new statement of faith. Now, all of us in Tuesday Connection, 35 women, we worked on an initial draft called Faith Talk 2. 7 of us, Sharon Costal, Barb Hurl, Anne McCracken, Iris Stanley, Rosemary Cunningham, Mieke, and I, became so engaged in creating a faith statement for the 21st century that we met weekly for the next 4 months, all over the summer, to adapt and change the draft. We called ourselves the Group of 7. Sometimes there were more. We weren't painting, but by September we had created something vibrant and very, very meaningful to us. Mieke loved being in the mix of wrestling with the best words to convey our spiritual understandings at that time, and how we loved doing this together. Mieke had many gifts and strengths. Today, I'm especially remembering her for her storytelling, her willingness to share her truth, her humor and fun-loving nature, her kindnesses to me personally, her humanity.
I'm bigger. Is that okay? Mieke enjoyed singing with the regular choir and the silver tones. She was an excellent pianist. She played guitar too and was a very good alto. She had a deep appreciation for good music and music with a strong message. That's not to say that she didn't like to belt out a fun tune and kick up her dancing heels at various events like choir parties. I do believe that other one was from one of the choir parties we had. I have no idea what that was about, but it doesn't matter. And the Great Escape, which was a weekend event for women, we did all kinds of very crazy things there. And Mieke, of course, loved all of it. One year, Mieke and I decided to join the Concordia College Community Choir. We ventured into unknown territory to hone our skills. We did learn some very beautiful and challenging music, and we even sang at the Windspear once. I think we both agreed, though, that the organ did not allow people like us. They didn't allow people to hear our newly tuned voices. I loved those trips in the wintertime with Mieke. We'd chug across whatever that bridge is over there, and we just had the greatest visits together. As one of our Silvertone choir pianists, Mieke was a very hardworking and very accurate person. I'm pretty sure I can hear her mumbling right now in my head, in her Mieke way, about all those changes and extras I threw her way. But dear, dear Mieke was resilient and very capable. I so appreciated having her as a partner in our Silvertone adventure. On our last visit together, I reminded her that she was an excellent pianist and an important member of our choirs. She even recognized, when I took the albums, she recognized a lot of the faces, and we talked about some of the people. And I reminded her that she was the one who played for us. And she was happy to know that. Because of a seasonal cold, I did not get back to there to do some playing and singing with her. That was going to be my next visit. But I do believe that people like Mieke carry music in... People like Mieke carry music in their heart and in their soul. And that is so evident as you look through the albums and you see her. In the pictures, you can see Mieke. She's very focused, concentrating really hard on all those notes. But then you look at the picture, and after that, you see that wonderful, wonderful Mieke smile. And I'll never forget that. Thank you, Mieke, for being who you were.
Hello, I'm Chris Newell, and I thought I should give some background as to how my friendship with Mieke and her family began. During grade 11, my parents, Phil and Audrey Newell, moved from Saskatoon to Edmonton, and were soon on the search for a new church. It was at this time I first met Mieke and Malcolm while attending the Southminster United Church, which was meeting in Vernon Barford School. During those years, my mother and Mieke developed a friendship that spanned many, many years. And of course, this friendship evolved into countless extended family gatherings, which among these was my wedding with Virginia. Mieke played a large role helping my mom with the preparation and festivities as the reception was held at my parents' acreage. Mieke's help didn't end there, as Virginia and I soon started building an acreage, which led to Mieke and Malcolm lending us their tent trailer so we could guard our building supplies, and their help in loading countless drywall sections and then hours of painting. I don't know how we could have done it without their help. As time moved on, so did our lives, and about 8 years ago, we reconnected with our decision to attend SSUC. Mieke was there welcoming us with open arms and so excited to introduce us to members of the congregation. Little did we know 40 years ago that Virginia and I would enjoy several wonderful years of singing with Mieke in the choir. Anne and Malcolm, our love and thoughts are with you. Thank you.
My name is Jackie Faust, and I'd like to share my memories of Mieke with you. I joined Tuesday Connection in the fall of 2007 after I retired. One of the first women I met was Mieke, who was very friendly and welcoming. I looked forward to seeing her each Tuesday. We shared an interest in classical Greece and Rome. Mieke encouraged me to join the It's Greek to Me book club. This club grew out of an Ella course that she had taken. Under the guidance of the professor who created the course, we read in English classical authors such as Herodotus, Marcus Aurelius, and Homer. Mieke, a year or two before COVID, gifted me with her copy of Procopius's The Secret History because she knew I loved ancient history. Mieke had acquired a comprehensive knowledge of the Greek and Latin languages when she was growing up in the Netherlands. I admired her ability to look at English words and dissect their Greek or Latin origins, which added depth to the meaning. For example, femina means woman in Latin. From this, we have words in English like feminine, female, and feminist. Clear is a Latin loan word, which usually means bright or light. So, femina clara could be translated as bright woman, which Mieke certainly was. Mieke deeply cared about justice and equality and knew there was a mine of wisdom in the Greco-Roman literature. I will end my tribute to her with a quote by that great Roman orator, Cicero, that reflected her values. Let the welfare of the people be the highest law.
Hi everyone, my name is Reed Sherman and I probably know many of you, but not everyone. I want to extend my greetings to the whole Southminster Steinauer United family and also, of course, to Malcolm and Anne and the extended Wharton family. It's a sad time to have to say goodbye to such a dear sweet friend as Mieke, and yet also perhaps a time to release her from the body and the mind that was no longer serving her well and allowing her to be in this world in the way that she was so beautifully for so long. So my sympathies and condolences and my gratitude for someone who was such a special friend and will remain in our memories. Stefan also sent his greetings to you all. I was asked just to share a couple of memories, and I'll try to do that in a quick way. Stefan and I arrived in Edmonton in 1997, and we lived in the neighborhood of the church. And we came on a Sunday and were so warmly greeted by a number of people who are sitting in this hall and some who have unfortunately passed into another life. Mieke and Malcolm were one of those beautiful couples that greeted us so warmly. We didn't live far from each other, and I joined the choir soon after joining the church, and Mieke Mieke, of course, was the accompanier, or one of the accompaniers at that time, with Donna McGonigal as our director. Boy, did we have a lot of fun singing in those days, and Mieke was very much a part of that. When we decided to look at becoming an affirming ministry in the United Church, Mieke was one of the people who came to be part of that organizing committee, and we had lots of meetings. I think we ate quite a bit together too, and I think led a thoughtful discernment time for the congregation to consider what it means to be a radically, wonderfully inclusive community. That was back, I think, in the 1998-99 period. It seems like so long ago. When Stefan and I got a pug, some of you might remember, our black pug named Puccini, Mieke and Malcolm were immediately smitten with Puccini, and of course they had their wonderful dog Farley, and so Farley and Puccini became fast friends, going back and forth between our houses. When we'd be away, Puccini would go and stay with Mieke and Malcolm and Farley. So I think Mieke called herself Puccini's something surrogate grandma, mother, I forget which. But that was such a blessing to us, that Mieke and Malcolm would be hosts for our beloved Pooch. When we moved to Ottawa in 2001, and Mieke actually, we didn't want to take Puccini on the cross-country drive, so he stayed back with the Whartons, and then Mieke actually flew with Puccini out to Ottawa in, I think, June of 2001, and had a visit with us in our brand new house, and brought Puccini to us safely, and then flew back some days or a week later. So that was really nice of Mieke to be willing to do that. Another great memory is when Stefan and I got married here in Ottawa in 2005, and a whole gang of you came out from Southminster Steinauer, which was amazing. So that was a great moment, and for so many of you to share our joy, and Mieke and Malcolm were right there. And I forgot something too. Some of you may know I was supported for ministry from Southminster Steinauer, and was ordained in 2003 in Lethbridge, of all places. And again, a whole gang of you came down to celebrate that moment with me, and of course Mieke and Malcolm, I believe, were there, and there was a famous incident of how many church members can you put on a seminarian's bed in a hotel room the night before his ordination. You know who you are. And I wish I could find a picture. Maybe I'll send it later. But a whole gang of us somehow ended up on my bed, sprawled everywhere, and just smiles ear to ear. And I would suspect Mieke was in that group, as was Ivor Wood and so many other dear people. After that, when we would come visit in Edmonton, never would not get to see Mieke and Malcolm. And as they began a pug family, we would see their wonderful pugs. And just phone calls, even after, unfortunately, she was diagnosed with the dementia. It was still wonderful to get to talk to Mieke. She had a thread of conversation that was just beautiful, remembering what she could, but just, you still know when you're connected to someone and when you love someone. And that is a connection that I will always treasure, as I do in a continuing way with Malcolm and I don't speak as often with Anne, but we message back and forth. Of course, it was so tragic when Paul died, and hard to be so far away when a tragedy like that happens. So Stefan and my hearts have been with you, Malcolm, and Anne, and everyone who knew Paul, and just such a tragedy we wish would not have happened. And yet we know we live between something called birth and something called death. And that is the way of life. I don't think we'd want it any other way, but when life ends in a tragic way, and certainly for Mieke, dementia is such a terrible disease, and yet Malcolm, I think you did such a beautiful job keeping her at home until she needed to be in a residence and found that new place. I know that wasn't easy, and God bless you. You have fulfilled your marriage vows in beautiful ways, as I know Mieke did for you as well. So I think I'll stop there, but we send our love to you and to everyone who is gathered. You all are so special to us, and we don't get to see you often enough. And Malcolm, we will absolutely stay in touch, and Anne. So may you find beautiful support and spirit, and may Mieke's beautiful spirit and her smile and her music, her joy, her kidding, be with all of you as her spirit will be with me and us. Thanks so much for asking us to contribute to this beautiful day, and we hope to see you soon.
For a time of sorrow, I share with you the agony of your grief. The anguish of your heart finds echo in my own. I know I cannot enter all you feel, nor bear with you the burden of your pain, but I can offer what my love does give: the strength of caring, the warmth of one who seeks to understand, the silent, storm-swept barrenness of so great a loss. This I do in quiet ways, that on your lonely path you may not walk alone.
This is a reading from Matthew chapter 14. And if you want to guffaw or sigh heavily while I read it, that's just fine. Jesus insisted that the disciples get in the boat and go ahead to the other side. And this was so that he could climb a little ways up the hill and be by himself for a while. He stayed there alone late into the night. Meanwhile, the boat was far out to sea when the wind came up against them and they were battered by the waves. Early in the morning, Jesus came toward them, walking on the water. They were scared out of their wits. "A ghost," they said, crying out in terror. But Jesus was quick to comfort them. "Have courage. Don't be afraid." Peter, suddenly bold, said, "Teacher, if it's really you, then call me to come out to you on the water." Jesus said, "Well, come ahead then." So jumping out of the boat, Peter walked on the water to Jesus. But when he looked down at the waves churning beneath his feet, he lost his nerve. And he started to sink, and he cried, "Teacher, save me." Jesus didn't hesitate. He reached down, grabbed his hand, pulled him up, and said, "Peter, you're faint-hearted. What got into you?" And then the two of them climbed into the boat, and the wind died down, and all who saw it were quite amazed. In this old story from our tradition, may we find wisdom for our living. When life is filled with so much, so many experiences, memories, relationships, jobs, vacations, friends, work, play, good health and bad, yet the wise person keeps looking, stays faithful to the good people around them, and believes there is no end to seeing. There is no end to seeing. Not just with eyes, but seeing in the most broad sense, with one's heart, mind, spirit, being able to see. From Miike's very early years in Amsterdam during the Nazi invasion, she knew violence and fear. She knew hatred, racism, and prejudice. It was a tumultuous beginning. She told stories that many of us in the room have heard and are indelibly written on us and our experience with Mieke because of the way she told those stories. She remembers the Nazi youth harassing the family, shouting up at the apartment windows. She remembers the invasion into the baby's room and being worried that the soldier would kill the sleeping child in her crib. Now, for all its horrors, and perhaps because of those horrors, Mieke grew to be an extremely kind and caring person, fiercely dedicated to peace and justice, to what's right, to the end of all that leads to such atrocities. But in balance to that early life, Mieke grew to love music as a solace, as a salve for her soul, becoming very proficient at the piano at a young age, learning and excelling at it. And she loved books, always loved reading, loved learning. Mieke spoke her native Dutch, but was soon familiar with English, with German, French, Latin, Greek. Whew. She entered the University of Amsterdam to study law. And I know we've heard and experienced the result of that study and knowledge. Her passion and love of the classics was one. Her fascination with language was another. Loving to play around and find just the right words. The wise person keeps looking, knowing there is no end to seeing. As we heard, it was as a student in Amsterdam that she took up what was to be her sister's place in an exchange program. By way of California, she made her way to Canada. Mieke spent 2 weeks on a farm near Smithers, BC. That farm happened to belong to the Wharton family. And it was very politely called a whirlwind romance, but I'll tell you the truth. By the end of that 2-week exchange program, Malcolm had proposed. The two were married in Amsterdam and soon after settled back in Canada on the farm. Now, Mieke, for as difficult as Amsterdam life was, she was a city girl. And so the farm was quite a change. Malcolm tells stories of Mieke taking to that life so well. Driving the tractor, driving the baler. One particularly memory, if you don't mind me sharing, Malcolm, was the night that the bull got out of its pen. And so both Mieke and Malcolm, in their night clothes, sounds like a nursery rhyme, both went outside to investigate. Mieke in her nightgown, Knowing that Malcolm was trying to get that bull's attention and back into its pen, Mieke jumped up and down and yelled at the bull. And getting its attention, Malcolm was finally able to get it penned back up. Now, even though I've only known Mieke in the last decade or so of her life, I can picture perfectly a scene of a nightgown-clad Mieke jumping up and down, waving her arms and screaming her head off. I don't know what that says about Mieke or about me, but I can picture it perfectly. It wasn't long before Malcolm and Mieke, and then Anne, who was born there, needed to transition away from the farm, and they moved to Edmonton, and with Paul arriving shortly after. And so began her life as a mother, a hard worker, and one who loved to experiment with her creativity every chance she got, in photography, in crocheting and knitting, in calligraphy, and of course, the always present music. The wise person keeps looking, and there's no end to seeing. Now, I do want to talk for a very short time about this little story I read. It might first seem strange to tell a story of what has been called a miracle story, maybe the miracle story, walking on water, at a time like this. But in fact, the reading of this very story I think it might have inspired an outburst by Mieke, and that's partly why I chose it. Because I think from standing here and hearing Mieke make those little eruptions, it wasn't that she was rejecting it outright. It was her saying, I don't buy it yet. It was like a little challenge to me up here. Convince me, that little sound said. Convince me there's something I should listen to in this. But this story is not really about a miracle at all. It's not about walking on water as an act in and of itself. It's about what's going on in Peter's heart during the course of this story, and it's what's going on in our hearts during the course of this story and during the course of our lives. When faced with a challenge, Peter was all bravado. He saw how to rise out of the storms of life, probably because he had a teacher that was about encouraging that. He saw that calm could overcome chaos. He saw that and he wanted it too. So with the instruction not to be afraid, he does step out of the boat and into those stormy waters. And what do you know? He starts doing it. He starts managing the roiling water. He starts making a go of it. He starts doing what he needs to overcome whatever challenge he's facing. But then his heart, our hearts, they so often betray us. He looks down at the rolling, storming water underneath him, and when he sees just how real the situation is, he loses his nerve, the story says. He starts to get pulled under, overwhelmed by his reality. And he recognizes that he needs help. And luckily, the bravado very quickly left, probably with the first gulp of water in his mouth. And he actually does ask for help, and he gets the hand to lift him up. And these two friends together make it until the winds die down. And the best part, in my opinion, is that Jesus turns to him and says, "You're faint-hearted. What got into you?" It's the question for us all. When we're in the middle of life's storms, it's our hearts that need the strength. The boat, we can't count on that. The wind to blow in the right direction, can't count on that either. What we have is our heart. To be strong-hearted in the face of challenge and adversity. And in case we need it, it's a little PS. Surround yourselves with those who have been in the storm before. Because ones with strong hands and strong hearts are able to help us back up when we lose our nerve, and we all lose our nerve. Malcolm told me that when they had to leave the farm in BC, it was one of the hardest times he'd ever experienced. It was one of those moments of change and transition that you don't want to see coming, but comes anyway. Farming was all he knew, and now he was headed to the city, and Mieke was the city girl, not Malcolm. He tells me that the greatest gift that Mieke gave him I'll start that sentence again. He tells me that the greatest gift that she gave to him was her confidence in him. And what did that do? That helped him grow confidence in himself. Mieke was a strong-hearted woman. We've named all of those things, haven't we? Her intellect, her compassion, her desire to create a world that would become more kind, more just. For a lot of people, but specifically for the LGBTQ community. For an understanding of spirituality that broke from the rigidity and the power of the patriarchal tradition and toward a more expansive and loving future. Passionate about the animals of this world, their care and their well-being. Intensely interested for peace for the Jewish and Palestinian people everywhere. It's worth saying again, the wise person keeps looking, stays faithful to the good people around them, and believes there is no end to seeing. Now, there's no denying that the last months of Miike's life, the last many months, brought a turmoil that bookended her early years, bringing pain of a different sort. A storm of inner loss and anguish that we can't possibly know. Those around her, family, friends, have had to say goodbye to the Mieke that they knew bit by bit. But she was strong-hearted even in her body's tenacity to carry on, despite the cognitive and physical challenges. We might remember Mieke best, yes, with the stories and memories we share that reside within us, will always be with us, but also by continuing to live her legacy, living with strong hearts, open to the spirit of learning and inquiry, but also having that space in your life for joy and beauty, a giggle and a laugh. Intensely committed to peace and justice. May we be about the ongoing task of strengthening our hearts, because we're never done. It's exercise for us every day, to face what we need to in life with strength, to know that there is no end to seeing and no end to wisdom for our living. We'll do that every time we face one of life's storms. We'll do that each time we encounter someone in need and outstretch our hand to help them in their storm. We'll do that each time we lose our nerve and start sinking. We'll call upon the legacy of strength, of love, of heart. We'll remember Mieke, and we'll know there's no end to seeing. Thank you, Mieke. May it be so in so many ways. let's enter a space and a time where we can offer our gratitude, share it with each other, celebrate what we shared in Miike's life. We do approach the great task of grief knowing the sacredness of life and death. And so we come to this place knowing our connection to the long story of the universe, grateful for the earth as our cradle, the stars and sky as our blanket, the creatures of land, sea, and air as our siblings. We, all of us, are ancient atoms, rearranged and recycled from generation to generation, formed of stardust and returned to that universal substance in a beautiful and endless cycle. And so in our brief time, we affirm the sacred connection of all things, all people. And it's in that connection that we center ourselves now and acknowledge our sadness and grief at having now lost that physical, embodied connection and embrace of Mieke. But also to celebrate her journeying on in that great universal recycled substance that we share. So in our gratitude, we share for who Mieke was and how she lived, for the love she shared as a wife, a mother, an aunt, cousin, and friend, for her love and care she showed to those around her, her ability to listen and befriend, especially those who needed that friendship most. We are thankful for her generosity to give her time to the things she loved, for the fierceness with which she advocated for the LGBTQ community, for her support of the affirming ministry of this congregation, her work toward inclusion, for the ways she loved and cared deeply for animals, and the companions that she walked with during her days, for her love of music and her lifelong skill in making music and sharing it. We have such gratitude for her sense of humor, her willingness to be silly, and her spirit of fun, for her independent nature, for her strength and perseverance, her determination and spirit on the difficult road that she traveled with her illness, for the values she learned and lived, her honesty and integrity, her empathy and understanding, her non-judgmental and fun-loving spirit. And we share gratitude for all that made Mieke unforgettable in the hearts of those who knew her. And so we name our thanksgiving for her life. May our prayers be expressions of our care for Malcolm, for her daughter Anne, her many friends and companions along life's way. And we commit our care for all who have been touched by Miike's life and are now grieved by her death. May the hope that we find here in this gathered community and in the faith that we hold encourage us in the work of our grief and in the living and continued living of the legacy that we learn from a dear friend. And may the peace that passes all understanding give us a safe place always, a spiritual home, and a hopeful tomorrow. In these things we pray gratitude. Amen. On behalf of the Wharton family, thank you for being present with us today, online and in person. Immediately following our time in this gathering, we are invited to come outside directly to the Memorial Garden, where we'll have a short experience together as we commit Miike's remains to the earth. We will continue to live stream for those of you online, so just follow us outside, give us a few minutes to gather there, and we will be with you in the garden in a few moments. And all of us, please stay afterward in this space for a reception to continue sharing stories and memories of Mieke, and to have a few laughs and a few tears. Let's share these closing words together in this circle of comfort and support. Please respond with the text in yellow. All our laughter, all our sadness, safe now in the undying light of love. All our stories, all our memories, safe now in the undying light of love. The one we remember, the ones we love, safe now in the undying light of love. And so as our time comes to a close, we will seek to find new ways for Miike's light to shine. We will experience the light of Miike's life and legacy in new ways now. Although we continue to grieve, we recognize that the light remains all around us, within us. And so we go in peace, in the presence of Miike's light of love that continues to shine in all its ways, and in the presence of sacred light that surrounds us, dwells within us, the love and the peace that is ours now and always. Welcome to the memorial. Oh, you're okay. It's here in this restful place that we're surrounded by life, but also that kind of springtime potential of new life. The life of this planet and this city. The life of the connection among this family with broader community. And like every moment, this one's sacred. So as we gather together to continue honoring the life and the love of Mieke, it's appropriate that in the midst of the noises of the city, the birds, the blowing wind, that we can find ourselves in a garden where every spring life returns, where every summer the vivid colors will remind us of the great cycle of birth and death and birth again. We can spend a few minutes today knowing that we commit Mieke to this place with love and with care and compassion. For us, a small monument, a symbol, a place of meaning where beyond our own hearts, something special will always reside. Just a very brief poem. One that we share often, but one that continues to have meaning for us. Eagle Poem by Joy Harjo. To pray you open your whole self, to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. And know there is more than that you can't see, can't hear, can't know, except in moments steadily growing. And in languages that aren't always sound, but other circles of motion. We see ourselves and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing that we are made of this. And breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born. And die soon, within a true circle of motion. Like eagle rounding out the morning inside us, we pray that it will be done in beauty. I invite you to participate with me in this act of committal. Please repeat after each phrase that I offer with the phrase, "We entrust her." Into the warmth of great love, we entrust her. Into the joy of our memories, we entrust her. Into the ongoing journey, we entrust her. The universe, we entrust her. Into the radiance of the sun, we entrust her. Into the embrace of eternity, we entrust her. Into the love which surrounded her always, we entrust her. Into rest and peace and fulfillment, we entrust her. In life, in death, and in the mystery of what lies beyond our understanding, we entrust her. And so we commit Mieke's body to this place, even as we commit her spirit to our own hearts and to its home in the heart of the universe and all that is sacred among us. Malcolm, do you want to pour any of the ashes?
Have you do it.
Okay.
If my back goes out,
That's fine. We don't want you in the hole either.
Okay.
Okay. This is so Mieke knows what I'm doing. She can see the orange fluorescent gloves. Here in Alberta, where the month of May is unpredictable, we will plant. But maybe after the long weekend, right? Yeah. And that plant will mark this place and join the beauty of this garden for years to come. As we study and now celebrate this beautiful place, hear these words by Mary Richardson. Even though you have died, you leave us with this great heritage of remembered joy. You will live in our hearts, in the happiness we knew, in the dreams that we shared. You'll breathe in the lingering, fragrant, wind-blown scents from our favorite flowers. You'll smile in moonlight silver and laugh in sunlight sparkling gold. You'll speak in the echoes of words we've heard you say again and again. You'll move in the rhythm of waving grasses and in the dance of tossing branches. Your memory is warm in our hearts, comfort in our sorrow. You will be a part of us always, for love is eternal. So friends, as Mieke has taken her place among all that have gone before us, and yet living in our hearts and lives, words and actions, may this place remain a place of peace and reflection for us all. And may we, having joined this circle, come and go to this in joy and in peace. Amen.